Hello and welcome back to another episode of Come Over for Dinner. I'm Bess Hawthorne and I'm so excited you're joining me today. Today I have a very special guest. Her name is Elizabeth Landis. She has been married almost 39 years to Greg, and they have 5 grown children, young adults, I should say. Her youngest is at NSA. He's a sophomore, and the 4 others have graduated NSA. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. One is married and has a grandbaby on the way, which is so exciting for Elizabeth and her husband, first-time grandparents. She works at New St. Andrews College as an assistant to the president, and she is the founder of the Civics Club, which started in 2020 for New St. Andrews College. She is very busy, but she makes hospitality a priority. We're going to discuss some of the work that she does in the realm of civics as well as her hospitality. She has a family Sunday lunch every Sunday, and she has taught her kids how to cook and lots of other amazing things. The biggest thing we're going to talk about is her new book. She has recently written a book called The Forgotten Realm and is working on a study guide to go with it, which will be out, I'm sure, by the time this podcast is released. So welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, you are a very busy lady, but you not only write and work for New St. Andrews College, but you make hospitality a priority. So we're going to delve into all of that. First, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Did I miss anything?
I think you covered most of the basics.
Okay. Well, let's start off with talking about your new book because it's very interesting. At New St. Andrews College, you've run a civics club for about 5 years. And I was wondering, did that inspire the book, or did you already have the idea in mind for your book?
I had the idea in mind since about 2018, but I actually started learning about the civil realm in 2016. So this has been an ongoing thing.
Would you give us a quick overview of the book and why you wrote it?
Yes, I wrote it because I see a great need in America for Christians to understand our government. And I initially made the assumption that many of us make when we're learning something new that, oh, I'm the only one who doesn't understand this. But the more I observed public meetings, the more I talked to people, I realized, oh, there are many people, even people in elected office, who don't understand our government.
That's very true. There's a paragraph I want to read from her book. In the introduction of her book, she says, "As conservative American Christians, we are a politically frustrated people. Some of us survey the political landscape and throw in the towel. Some look for a political savior to appear. Others resort to anger or declare that Christians should have nothing to do with the political process. And a few muster the efforts and finances to run for office, often without much preparation for the real job if elected. But it doesn't have to be this way. We don't have to feel frustrated, defeated, angry, or unprepared. And we must not turn away. Our government was designed to be run by we, the people. Somewhere along the way, we lost that memo because we lost the instruction manual to the civil realm of American government." And throughout the book, you teach what the government is all about. And this is so true. A lot of times when we look out at the political landscape, it is just so depressing, and people don't know what to do. What would you say to someone when you're encouraging them to start? Like, where would they start?
Well, first I would say that the government, as designed by our founders and the framers of the Constitution, acknowledged that the power comes from the people. And so we have to realize we are part of the people. Secondly, in Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution, every state is guaranteed a Republican form of government. And by definition, Republican means that we elect representatives to govern on our behalf. What we have done is then washed our hands of it and said they'll take care of things and it'll be okay and I can get back to my business as usual. And what we have is a mess on our hands. We have American Christians who don't know our system of government. We're conversant with the federal level because we hear about it on the news. My book is called The Forgotten Realm. I start with the local level of government and move upwards chapter by chapter through our American system, reaching the national system in the end. But what I would say is that we are the ones who are to be instructing and speaking into the lives of those we elect. That means we have to understand the office that they serve in, and we have to know who they are, and we have to know what the procedures are and what the other branches of government side by side and above and below are. And so one of the very best things to do for someone who doesn't know what to do is go to the nearest level of government near you, find when it meets, and slip in and observe a public meeting. And you'll feel like you don't belong there, but that's precisely where your tax dollars are going, and that's precisely where you can be salt and light.
Mm-hmm. You have numerous examples in your book where you brought information, or maybe people that you know also brought information to an elected representative that helped them make a decision in some area, and they were thankful for that. You have reports that you've presented, or just, I don't know if it was case studies or what, but you presented and they're like, this is what I've been looking for. This is great information. This helps me make a decision or helps sway my vote. And so becoming involved like that, like you mentioned, or even running for political office, but you can't run if you don't know how it works.
Well, you can, but you might get recalled out of office if you get elected.
Because you don't know what you're doing.
Because you don't know what to do.
Yeah, you can't just have the impetus of I want to serve if you don't have any knowledge behind it.
It's like applying for a job that you're not qualified for.
Right.
Yeah.
Another place in your book you mention, although Christians have neglected the civil realm, this neglect has happened in part because we have been so busy working in the realms of church and family. And of course, the realms of church and family are extremely important. Again, it's so true. So many Christians have their heads down. They're doing the work that God's called them to. They're raising children. They're working hard. And you feel like, do I even have time? A lot of people don't even vote, which, speaking of, we recently in November had local elections, and a lot of people don't vote in local elections, but that is who runs your library and puts the books in your library, and that's the mayor of your city and different things like that. The city council, it affects your very near world, and a lot of people don't even make time for that. So how would you encourage people to get involved on that level when they say, well, I'm busy?
Yes, I've kind of considered myself a civic journalist up to this point. Not that I've published a lot of articles, but I've taken a lot of notes and tried to process. And what the conclusion that I've come to recently in the last year is that we are on the verge of losing our republic. And so we need to dig in and learn our American system. And that means reprioritizing our schedules. So God has put actually 4 realms of government over us. The 4th is the realm of self-government. And so I don't count that. I count that as undergirding all the others. But the realm of civil government, which is the state, it's often called, but government, we would call it, also the government of the church and of the family. And so we need to reprioritize our schedules and make some time for civil government. For me personally, I'm not in, our church has parish groups, and that would be for people in all different kinds of churches. That would be like a fellowship group. Mm-hmm. And I don't go to that because I don't have time to do that and go to city council.
Right.
And so in a sense, city council is part of what would be my parish group because that's where I decide to spend my time. Mm-hmm. So we have to reorganize our time.
Mm-hmm. You have to figure out, how can I fit this in? And
yes.
What else may I have to say no to for this time or whatever? I know specifically with the election, there were so many people who were posting on Facebook or different places like that, like, I can watch your kids if mm-hmm. you want to swing them by my house, especially encouraging moms to go vote. I'm not sure how this turned out, if it was needed. It was kind of an experiment, but there was a lady who coordinated she coordinated ladies offering a car sitting service. Like if moms wanted to pull in the parking lot and go in and vote, a young lady, or not a young, so I went, so I don't know, I guess I still count as a young lady. A lady, some of them young, would be a car sitter. Like they would pop in the car and hang out with the kids while the mom took her 5 minutes early voting. It was during the early voting week to run in and vote and then come back out. She didn't have to unload all of her children and, do that whole process. So there were just different things. Oh, and then there was also, on the last day before the early voting closed, a local family medicine center had a babysitter out at their playground and said, if you want to drop your kids off from, basically all day, anytime to go and vote, we're here. They have hot cider and donuts. You go vote. And so it was just this push to make it accessible, but also encourage people to do their civic duty. And one thing I've always said, do not complain if you did not go vote. You have really nothing you can say on the local or federal level if you're not actually doing something besides words. If you are actually putting your feet to the ground and going and voting for the president or voting for your mayor or voting for the library trustee, and you lose, okay, well, you've done something, but you can't just sit and complain from your armchair and never have stepped foot out of your house to vote. So I think that is definitely a number one. Like you got to find out when the voting day is, which I guess, is it always November 4th?
Yes, well, it's the first Tuesday after, is this right? The first Tuesday after the first Monday in November.
Okay.
I believe that's
how
it goes.
So I guess that number date would vary, but it's always that Tuesday. And then back to your point, just encouraging people to go even beyond that and know who their representatives are. I know there's sometimes letters that need to be written or a phone call made, or even listening in on a city council meeting would be interesting. Another part of her book says, I am here to encourage you to learn to participate in the civil realm more than you have before, even if you think that you do not have time to fit this sort of participation into your life. We are motivated to do so precisely because we have a king who bought us with his blood. He died and rose again so that we can live both now and in eternity. He told us to pray for his kingdom to come on earth as it is in heaven. It's an amazing point. We don't have to just be like doom and gloom where it's like, well, why even bother on this earth? No, we do have power here to influence and to use our vote or our works in order to make the world a better place and to make it more Christian. With this long-range view in mind, we can afford to be patient and learn to serve in the civil arena with an eye of faith, looking toward civic renewal and reformation. Very good encouragement. So, who is this book written for? Is it for adults? Is it for students, high school level? What age would you say this book was written for?
It's written for anyone from junior high through the oldest senior citizen. So I particularly did not write a textbook. I wrote a handbook because our need is so great. I thought, who reads a textbook? It just sits on the shelf.
That is so true. And if it's a textbook, a normal person might not pick it up if they're not a student. They would think this is written for a student. I'm not in school.
Right. It's a very casual writing style to try to draw people in and say, this isn't something beyond you. This is something you can do.
Very accessible. Your writing is very easy to understand. It's not rocket science. I feel like anyone who reads it could understand what you're saying. Maybe go back and reference things and underline and be like, now what? I need to remember this. But very easy to understand. You're writing a study guide, or completing a study guide, I should say. It's pretty much written. Is that if people want to do a book study, or if you were to use it in school as a curriculum, you could use that for the students? Or how would you say that should be used?
Yes, I've had people read the book and say, could you write a curriculum that we could teach our kids?
Mm-hmm.
And this helps parents, this helps school teachers to not have to reinvent the wheel, but to have me start to guide them through it. And the other thing that I did with the curriculum is make it a walkthrough of the Constitution, because many people talk about the Constitution, classes talk about it, but I thought we probably ought to just read through it line by line and talk about it. And it is 18th century text, and so it's a little challenging from time to time, but
Yes.
I think it's what we need.
Yeah. Wow. Did you say the title of that already?
Yes. So this book is The Forgotten Realm. The curriculum is The Civil Realm. We are actually remembering it as we learn it. So
Yes.
it's no longer forgotten by that point.
Wonderful. And when does that come out?
It's going to be piloted at a local co-op in January. And then I hope to have it on the market just before the semi-quincentennial, which is the 250th anniversary this July 4th of our nation.
What a fun time to release it.
Yes.
That would be very memorable. And do you have a website? Where do people order this?
They can go to civilrealm.com. That's the website for the book. And the curriculum will eventually be listed there too. It's not listed yet. The book is also on Amazon.
Okay. All right. Very fun. Well, a final closing word from her book. She says, "It is time to recover the forgotten realm, God's plan of civil government for man. In America, He has blessed us with a constitutional republic. There is a plan for our governing process. The founding fathers prayerfully formed it. The framers prayerfully crafted it into a written constitution. They expected us to understand the process, operate within it, and act to preserve it. We, on the other hand, have assumed that it can operate without us. It can, and it has, but the results are not pretty." And that is currently where we are. There's a lot of involvement that needs to take place from Christians. So thank you for this book, and thank you for that encouraging word. And we're just going to do a complete 180. I don't know if it's a 180 to go from the civil realm to the, what's the other realm called?
The realm of the family?
The family realm. We're going to go over there and jump into hospitality now, because Elizabeth is also known for hospitality and making that a priority and feeding her young adult children, just opening her home even though she's very busy. So we mentioned earlier that she has family lunch every Sunday, and she has taught her kids how to cook as they grew up. And I have heard from some of them that they have cinnamon roll and pizza cook-offs. And I think she probably wins. I don't know if they have a blind taste test, if any of her kids have beaten her yet. So we're going to hear a little bit about home life. So jump into that and tell us a little bit about the hospitality that you do at your house.
Well, the first thing I'm supposed to tell you before I forget is you had my son George on, and he spoke about Dave's rich and meaty chili, because we used to live in Columbus, Ohio, and that's where Dave Thomas, the founder of Wendy's, is from. And in the newspaper one day, this is back when recipes used to be in the newspaper, there was a recipe for Dave's rich and meaty chili. I cut it out and I saved it. I've used it for years and years, and what I'm supposed to tell you is George just won a chili cook-off with it.
You're kidding.
So I didn't want to do this time with you and forget to communicate that.
If this is not a top secret recipe, then we have to have it for the blog. We have to post it on comeoverfordinner.com so we can all recreate this. That is so great. Do y'all tweak it in any way, or is it just as is, it's perfect?
As is, I think it's perfect. And I often tweak just because I'm a tweaker, but it's good to be able to go back to that recipe. And on that note, one of the things we do when we have traveled as a family, you know, when you travel and you take an extended trip, it's often hard to get veggies in the kids. Mm-hmm. And we would often stop for a Wendy's chili, and that would be a source of vegetables. Except for the meat, it's all veggies.
Really?
Yeah. So that's just one of my tips.
I don't think I knew that about Wendy's chili.
Yeah.
Because usually with chili, you think meat, beans, tomato type sauce. Mm-hmm. What vegetables do they put in there?
Onions, celery, green pepper, and then the tomatoes.
Okay.
And then you could call the legumes, of course, in the vegetable realm, so the beans as well.
Mm-hmm. So the vegetable realm.
Yeah, that's another.
The civil realm, the family realm, the vegetable realm.
Yes.
That is the forgotten realm, if we're being honest. America, in most families, or it's just a struggle to get enough vegetables in. So that's a great idea. And, I'm sure you could even add other things to it. I don't know if you'd want to, but, sneak a few little extra veggies in there. But chili is good. It's just so many times of the year. You could do it in the summer over Fritos. I make a Frito pie, the Fritos cheese and sour cream. Fall, winter, it's always great.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be a recipe. Would you say that that's your favorite menu that you serve when people come over?
No, I would say that I have lots of favorites, but I have to confess that writing this book, running the Civics Club, working at New St. Andrews is a very different life than what I led in the Midwest.
Oh, for sure.
And so my recipes now are much less about exploring the culinary world and more about how to get a meal on the table that everybody's going to like.
Mm-hmm. Make it something super fast,
Yes.
but delicious.
Yes.
And that's okay too, because as you mentioned earlier when you were talking about time, you do have to prioritize time based on what else is going on in your life. If you made some multi-course gourmet meal, would you have time to regularly? Would you have time to run the Civics Club? Well, maybe not. So you're going to give up the continual gourmet cooking that you very well could do in order to be able to have time for other things. So I think that's a great encouragement because a lot of, especially young moms, are in that situation.
Mm-hmm. And there's a time for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't consider myself a career woman at all. I consider myself someone who has seen a problem, a kind of an eye that sees and wants to try to help fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that has taken a lot of time. And I've often thought, is this worth the sacrifice? But the sacrifice is for a season, and it is. When I was in the thick of writing the book itself, I didn't do well at supper. Just to research our American system and write a paragraph could take me easily an hour for a paragraph that then needed to be edited quite a bit. I would hand it to my husband with a red pen, and he would just bleed all over it. But to understand that, I felt like I was doing that on behalf of Americans. And one night I said to my son, "There's not supper again tonight." And he said, "Mom, if you don't write this book, a lot of people aren't going to be having supper." And so I was so glad that he understood
why you were sacrificing or what your time was going towards was so important.
Yes. And it was a struggle, and I felt quite torn. But it was great to have a son. I think he was maybe 13 at the time. I'm not sure, but who understood.
Well, and, times like that, it helps kids to become a little more independent.
Yes.
It's a little tough on you. You feel a little guilty. But if you allow things like that, if you allow those types of circumstances to change them too, where now he's figuring out how to make some waffles for dinner, or he's learning how to make grilled cheese and tomato soup for everyone, or whatever, they can really step up and gain confidence in the kitchen, even if it starts off with simple things. And that is a wonderful skill that they've learned. Because more and more kids do need to learn that independence before they're 18 years old and going off to college or a career or a trade school or whatever. Pretty soon their mom's not making 3 meals a day. And so if you have not given them any tools to be able to say, well, mom didn't cook dinner tonight, I can do it. If they're not ever at that point, they're really going to be struggling. So good opportunities for him too. Sounds like he grew a lot too. Okay. Well, tell us what your favorite menu is now. Do you have something simple that you prepare?
Yes. I have variations on a theme, but we'll go with one. I thought, well, for your listeners who are looking for something really easy, I would say my easiest is putting chicken breasts, boneless, skinless chicken breasts in the crock pot. The rule of crock pot is generally 3 to 5 hours on high, 4 to 6 on low. Chicken breasts, boneless, skinless particularly, are at the very low end of that. So if you're doing it on high, it would be about 3 hours max, and low 4 hours max. And they overcook kind of easily. But what I do then is shred them and serve them on toasted buns. And you talked about toasting bread on one of your podcasts, just lightly in the oven.
Yes.
You can just put cut sides up of buns, lightly butter them, lightly broil them. Don't walk away from the broiler.
Right.
And I usually serve those with the toppings our family likes, which is usually barbecue sauce, pickled jalapenos, some chopped cilantro, some shredded cheddar. And if it's this time of year when sweet onions are really sweet, then we do sweet onions as well. But every family has a grouping of toppings they like, or you can just put out a whole array of toppings. Those sandwiches go over so well. I actually don't salt or pepper the meat. I just serve it the way it is, and people love it. So my daughter had told me a few times, Mom, instead of shredding the meat with a fork, put it in the KitchenAid with the paddle mixer.
That is a hot tip.
Yeah, I did it this past Sunday, and it was wonderful. Then I put it back in the crock pot. And sometimes we serve this buffet, or sometimes I'll put the crock pot in the center of the table, just the crock itself, and I might ask somebody to serve. But that would be the main dish. And then I usually serve some form of potato with it. Our favorite would be mashed potatoes. And a tip on that would be, I don't peel them perfectly. I do peel them. I've tried not peeling, and you just have a conglomeration of peel caught up in whatever you're mashing with. But I peel after I've washed them, just loosely. And then I dice them, not too small, but usually slice in half, turn the flat sides down, and a couple cuts one direction and a couple the other. Put them in a pot of water. If you have time to do that up to a day in advance and they're covered with water, you can boil them and they're fine. You can prep ahead that way.
So you can boil them and just leave them covered with water and mash later?
No, you can leave them raw in the water.
Oh, raw in the water.
Yeah, as long as they're covered.
Okay.
You can always change the water if they have turned just a little bit reddish brown, but you don't have to. And I learned that tip years ago. So then you can boil them, drain them, and mash them. You can mash them in a mixer, or you can hand mash. And I've gone to hand mashing over time, and I just have that squiggle type handheld masher. And then I use about a tablespoon of butter for 2 potatoes.
Okay.
And then I start adding milk after I have some mashing done.
Do you heat your milk or do you use cold?
I use cold, but I'm usually mashing them on the warm burner, so it warms up pretty fast.
So it warms up fast.
Yeah. And then I season it with plenty of salt and freshly cracked pepper. So
Is that a key, freshly cracked pepper?
Yes, that would be my favorite kitchen gadget would be I use a coffee grinder for my pepper, and I actually have 2, one for pepper and one for other spices that are very different from pepper, and I just use a pastry brush and clean them out afterwards. But the freshly cracked black pepper really brings mashed potatoes up a notch, even for people who don't really like pepper. I just don't tell them, but it adds a lot of hidden flavor.
Okay, good tip.
And a little more salt than you would think you need. And I usually get a clean spoon and ask somebody for the review of how I've seasoned it. I'm not as good at that because
Get a second opinion.
Yep. And they'll say, oh, maybe some more salt.
Right.
But we make those a lot. And I usually serve green beans. And I'll tell you my green bean secret. It's happened over years.
Before we move forward, a big thank you to the sponsors for supporting today's episode. Have you ever thought about how much science is involved in cooking? Chemistry, physics, and biology are at play all over your kitchen. On the cutting board, in the mixing bowl, on the stovetop, and in the oven. Inquisicook is on a mission to show students that science can be relevant, fascinating, and delicious, all while teaching an essential life skill. Inquisicook begins with the basics of food science and culinary arts, Then add skills and concepts in a carefully crafted sequence that leads to proficiency. Best of all, the principles can be applied to any cuisine, any available foods, and any dietary restrictions. So when it's time for people to come over for dinner, the options are endless. Visit inquisicook.com to view sample lessons, then check out the recipe gallery to see just how crave-worthy science can be.
But a sheet pan with some oil in it, either olive or coconut.
Coconut oil, that would be interesting for
Yeah.
green beans.
It doesn't really have a flavor, and so it works really well. And then dice an onion, very small dice. And if you have a slice of bacon and you want to do a small dice on that, put that in the oven at 425 until the onions are browning. And the bacon, of course, if you use that, you want that on the little more crispy side.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get that accomplished, you can put actually frozen whole green beans in there and stir it around and cook those until they're the level of doneness that your family likes for green beans.
So you're roasting frozen green beans in the oven?
Yes.
Interesting.
In a base of onion and some oil. And if I have time, or the bacon, that's in there.
Yes.
And I usually try to finish it off with some fresh thyme that I just take a sprig from out in the yard and
sprinkle it over
sprinkle
the top.
that over. And again, a little more salt and pepper than you might think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the pepper mill or the coffee grinder has come in pretty handy.
Nice.
And you had asked about, maybe a shortcut.
Uh-huh.
If I have to do a shortcut, I will substitute frozen petite peas for the green beans because they almost don't have to be cooked at all.
They just cook almost instantly because they're so small.
Yes. Just put a pinch of sugar on them. Again, the salt and pepper.
And is this in the oven roasting, or do you do it on the stovetop?
On the stovetop.
Stovetop.
Mhm.
Like simmer, or not a simmer, but where you just put a little bit of water in the bottom. Steam's the word I'm looking for.
I don't even put the water in.
Okay. Because they're frozen and have water kind of around them.
Yes. And that's
ice
usually
crystals.
the last thing I do because those cook so fast.
Okay.
So that's a time saver.
That's a very interesting tip.
Yeah, and kids often don't like peas, but the petite ones are just not as mealy as the large ones.
Yes.
And so that seems like a meal that I can get around pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
And I try not to make it too often because
it's so easy and you want to.
Yeah, and everybody's so happy with it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
What kind of potatoes do you use?
I usually use russets and throw in a couple of red potatoes or yellow potatoes that add a little bit of creaminess that you can't exactly tell why these are so nice. They're not overly gummy as if they were all yellow or all red.
Right.
But they're not.
This is her expert cooking coming through. I've never thought about mixing potatoes before. I mean, I guess if I had leftovers of 2 bags, of course I would. But typically I don't think of that as a plan. What a great idea. Gives you some textures from both of them.
Dessert.
Yes. Of course we have to talk about dessert.
Well, I'm often caught kind of sideways with dessert because, of course, we love it, but I try not to have a lot of things around. And so what I've hit upon, I actually learned from a cook whose name is Marion Cunningham, and she edited the Fannie Farmer cookbook, and she also has had a few other cookbooks out. I think Learning to Cook with Marion Cunningham and Cooking with Children. Anyway, she's the first person who I saw that served hot cocoa for dessert. She did it in the summer, chilled it, and served it with ice cream. But what I'd like to mention for the listeners is that the Hershey's cocoa recipe on the package that you can buy at the store is wonderful. There's a recipe to make just 1 cup, and there's a recipe to make 4 cups. So you can make multiples of the 4. But the difference between the two is there's more cocoa in the 1 cup. And so if you want a richer cocoa, you want to use the ratio for the 1 cup. And if you want a less chocolatey, yes, cocoa, you want to do the 4 cup.
Who would want that? And why?
Exactly.
Didn't they just go up times 4 with their cocoa?
So I just did the math and made the 1 cup into a 4-cup recipe. And then sometimes I take it up to 16 cups and just use a whole gallon of milk. The nice thing about the cocoa, I actually can get up and make it and still talk to people if it's a casual meal, and they enjoy the fact that they're sort of seeing how to do this. It's not complicated. You can also control the sugar. I usually use half honey of the sugar amount, so half of it would be honey, and then a few droppers of stevia just to keep the sugar level down.
So no sugar at all.
Well, not any white sugar in that if I'm not wanting to be jittery. Now, for company, I can just do the whole dessert white sugar, and it's really, really sweet. I usually up the salt just a touch because that goes so well with the chocolate. You can also add a splash of heavy whipping cream at the end.
That would be so good.
If people are into alcohol, you can add a splash of a bourbon, but you don't have to. So it's a flexible dessert. You can do cream on the top. You can do marshmallows. And I've just found that our casual company who know us pretty well are quite pleased to have the cocoa passed around.
That is so much fun. That is such a great idea, and I've never done that. And homemade hot cocoa, it really takes such little time for using the cocoa powder. So much better than any mix you get out there. The powdered mixes that you buy often say weird things like, I don't know, corn solids or who even knows? It's just all these ingredients that it's like, what is that? I don't know what that is. And it's not very good. It usually kind of leaves an aftertaste. So I love homemade hot cocoa. And of course, I've had it where you melt the chocolate bar, and that's even richer. But making it with cocoa is instant. It really is, because your ingredients would be cocoa. Do you do water or milk?
You start it with a little bit of water to make a paste so that it isn't all grainy, and then milk. So, yes.
So it's rich, and then you can even add it, like you said, to make it richer. You could do a splash of cream or whipped cream on top or something else.
You could put a liqueur in it. You could make it orange flavored. Some people like cinnamon in it. Yeah.
Oh, that's such a great idea. All right. And you've mentioned some shortcuts. Now let's move on to your best prep tip. When you're having people into your home, what would you recommend to the listeners?
Well, I have done well with a shopping tip, and it's not rocket science. It's just buying the produce that's in season. And so, for example, when sweet corn is in season, that makes just such a wonderful side dish. I usually cut it off the cob because it's hard to visit with people and eat corn on the cob and take care of your teeth. I learned when I had braces, and my husband the same thing when he had braces. We cut it off when we never went back. So that is just a delightful side dish. And in the spring, asparagus. In May, strawberries on a baby spinach salad, but basically looking for what's in season.
That's a great tip. And it's such a treat because that's when it's the most delicious. What is your best advice for making people feel welcome when they come into your home?
Well, I asked my kids on that one. When we were in Indiana, it was going out in the yard and having some fresh flowers brought in and making flower arrangements. Here in Idaho, this is what they noticed and really like is taper candles on the table. And they said, Mom, we just don't see that very often, and you almost always have taper candles.
It gives it a warm lighting, especially around here in the winter. It's really dark. She is in Moscow. Of course, if she works for New St. Andrews, of course she's in Moscow, but we are in Idaho, and so the days become short very quickly when fall hits. And then it's just dark at dinner time. So taper candles make it feel warm and cozy and light. Do you have a whole spread down the table? Do you do numerous, like a whole, I don't know, just arrangement of them or just a few?
At this time in life, it's usually just 2. In the past, we might have had more going down a 12-foot table.
Mm-hmm.
We're just not there right now.
Right. You just make it fit your current life and amount of people and all of that.
Yes.
That's a great tip. What is your must-have kitchen item? You did mention one.
So, yes. And I think one of your recent podcasts, you had a lady on who sang the praises of the immersion blender.
Yes.
And I was so relieved that she did, because I don't have to count that one for mine. And she did.
But you would give it an extra boost, a second vote.
But she did such a lovely job explaining what she did with it that I would have to say mine is the rubber scraper.
Okay.
And
like the silicone spatulas?
Yes. I have high temperature ones that aren't quite as flexible. I have a smaller one that's very flexible, great for cleaning out a peanut butter jar. And currently, I don't have the huge one, but I used to do the 30-day cooking when the kids were younger, and I had a massive one. And that cooking would last us not just 30 days, but it would be about 4 months. And then when we had little kids, I didn't have to make the main dish for about 4 months.
That is interesting. And what a great recommendation. Just aside the kitchen items, a kitchen tip. Is this a cookbook or what was, I remember the 30-day cooking.
Yeah, it used to be kind of a movement in the culinary world. And I think we've probably gotten away from that just a little bit. But I had a friend who was very organized and came from highly disciplined stock. And so I came up with the recipes and usually did the math, and she did the shopping and organization, and we cooked at her house. And
how fun.
The kids just had a
do
play
it
day. It
Yes.
was wonderful. And then the husbands would haul these large bags or these gallon Ziploc bags of food and then try to freeze them flat if possible. And then once they were flat, then I would put them in a dish pan in the freezer, and they would stand up kind of like files. And it was a time in life that it was easier to take meals to people. And when you're a young mother, you often know a lot of other young mothers who need meals. And I could provide meals by buying ingredients to make a salad to accompany, or make a dessert to go with it, make bread to go with it.
So you would cook for 30 days, but because you were filling in during the week, you would just pull out a meal here and there. It wasn't for a whole month. Is that why it lasted so long for you?
I think it was because the children were younger and didn't eat as much as adults eat. And so a meal lasted us longer.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You could have that meal stretch out for numerous meals.
Yes. Or what would be counted in the recipe as one meal, we could freeze it as two the day we made it.
Multiple portions.
Yeah.
Did you work on just the main dish at that cooking day? And you pulled in sides later, or did you make sides as well?
It was mostly the main dish.
Which is really the hardest part to accomplish, just cooking the meat and getting your main dish there and ready. And then you can always do a quick vegetable or salad or buy something for dessert, like if you were taking something to a friend. So that is a great idea, too, to get back to the batch cooking. Just set aside one day. It does take more than one day, technically, because I know it took you a lot of time to plan and organize. But once that's done and you have that, you could keep that record and do it every year or every few months or however often you wanted to do it, and just really benefit from it for a while.
Yes.
I love that idea.
I also had a fleet of crock pots. I still have them. My kids called them a fleet because I have all different sizes. I don't have a programmable one yet, and that would be really handy right now. But one of the tips for people who, let's say you have listeners who are homeschoolers and they feed their children, their family 3 meals a day at home every day, I would do leftover warm-ups in crock pots. And I know the crock pot instructions say not to do that, but I would warm up soup in the crock pot on low, and maybe a couple hours into the morning, turn it to warm. And at lunch, we would have a hot lunch ready, and I wouldn't be waiting to warm something up. We could just stop school and eat lunch. I could have supper in a larger crock pot cooking. And so if I made those green beans I mentioned and we were having company, I would put those in a couple of smaller crock pots to serve out of to keep them warm. And I just have to mention my daughter told me that she went to a Crocktoberfest. And
I have to hear about this.
So just recently, everybody was to bring a dish in a crock pot along with the recipe, and everybody tried all the recipes. And then you were supposed to bring some containers to take leftovers home and divvied up all the leftovers, and people had meals for the week.
That is such a great idea.
Isn't that fun?
And then having a whole fleet of crockpot recipes at your disposal so that you can throw something in the morning and have it for dinner just when you walk in the door. That's amazing.
So next October, Crocktoberfest.
Everyone plan a Crocktoberfest. You need this in your life. That is so much fun. Is this college-age students doing this or young? I don't know which daughter this is.
They were all ages.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just all ages coming and doing this together.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
What is your favorite brand for the spatula? Do you have one, or you just?
I've always liked Rubbermaid.
Okay, Rubbermaid.
Yeah.
Who sells Rubbermaid? Is that?
I would just search it online and find it.
So Rubbermaid is what we look for.
And I bought a lot the last time. So when they wear out, or what happens is if you set it on the edge of a hot pan, the handle gets a little dent in it, and then it's a little bit weak there. So I try to put out a teacup or a coffee cup saucer next to the stove and set it on there and try to train people. Don't leave it on the side of the pan while you're making scrambled eggs or
right.
Yeah.
And then it'll last longer.
Yeah.
And when you're cleaning up, it's easy to throw that little plate into the dishwasher or hand wash it or whatever.
And if you use a food processor, don't try to use the rubber scraper with the blade in, because that will slice up you think, I'm going to be able to do it this time. And
then you go and slice your favorite spatula.
Yes. Just remove the blade. Or if your food processor comes with a plastic scraper, keep that and use it, because it often has a very flat side, which works great on a food processor.
Oh, that's a good idea. Tell me just real quick about the food cook-offs that you've done with your kids.
Well, I think the fun one we did, there was a family here in town. They actually own a hamburger restaurant, and all my kids have worked for them. And when we first moved to Moscow from the Midwest, we had them over and we served pizza. We just wanted to thank them for having brought our kids into their lives. And they fed them, especially during Easter. They had a gathering called an Easter Feaster. And we knew our kids were loved and taken care of when they were too far away from home to come home and be with us.
Because they came to New St. Andrews, but you had not moved yet.
Right.
Or the rest of the family. The kids, the older kids had come.
Yeah.
And were by themselves up here. Okay.
Yes. And they all worked at this hamburger restaurant, Humble Burger, and they just felt like they were part of a family. And so the owners, had another baby, and we said, well, after you have your baby, we will take the other kids to our house and we'll have a pizza cook-off. And so that was our best one. And the older son of their family, well, all their kids helped, but he was kind of the chef behind it. And we just made the pizzas that we made at home for our own families, and then we voted. We put them all down the table. Their daughter made how we were going to vote. And it ended up that our family voted for their family's pizza and theirs voted for ours, even though we had variations on a theme, all different toppings and such. Yeah.
That's funny how that works out.
Yes.
I'm sure they were all so delicious.
They really were good, and the kids did all of it. So.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite recipe that you always go to, or are you just kind of still experimenting?
I started out with a with a recipe that I tweaked over the years, and we would have pizza on Friday nights, and I would interview the kids and say, "What do you think of tonight's crust? And what do you think of tonight's sauce?" And they would tell me, and then I would tweak it.
Mm-hmm.
So that happened over years. I also told the children, well, then we got into sourdough and the crust became that, and then we tried different sauces. And I told the kids when they went to college, if you can make pizza, you will have friends.
Absolutely.
And so they all have their own way of making pizza. So now it's just all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
We just love it, however it is.
Yes. Pizza is so delicious. And you can top it with anything. I mean, you can make it veggie, you can make it meat, you can make it dessert. You can just do so much with it. It's so fun. And then cinnamon rolls. Did y'all do the same thing with cinnamon rolls?
Well, the cinnamon rolls we used to have every Sunday night, and I would make those when the kids were little and tweak those. So we went through, the whole wheat cinnamon roll route, and then I just kept very much like the pizza crust recipe. I kept tweaking it until we got to a point that the kids said, that's where we want it.
That's the one.
Yeah. So we haven't done as much comparing on that as we do. The other girls will make something that's very similar. So my middle daughter made pumpkin cinnamon rolls recently, and the youngest daughter makes this out-of-this-world apple bread that's like cinnamon roll in a pan, but it has thinly sliced apples in it. And
perfect for fall or winter.
Yes. So
delicious. Okay, so now that you have kind of settled on a really great variation of the cinnamon roll recipe, is that something you can share with the audience? Or is it still a work in progress in your mind?
Oh, I think I can share that.
Or is it in a vault? Oh, that would be fun. I love cinnamon rolls. Real quick, though, what side are you on when it comes to topping? Are you on, or frosting? Would you say it's a cream cheese frosting, or is yours the powdered sugar topping?
I have one daughter who doesn't like cream cheese frosting, and so I have gone mostly with the Wilton buttercream frosting for cakes, but I up the salt level, and I don't put in as much. Like the almond flavor has to go way down, a drop, if any. Mm-hmm. And that seems to be what we like best. This goes back to the 30-day cooking days, but I put the frosting in a freezer Ziploc bag, and then I clip the end of it, and I am able to then direct the frosting out of that clipped end. And depending on how thick people want the frosting, that depends on the size of the clip.
And you put those in the freezer too? When you said 30-day cooking, you could freeze those and have them ready for a special breakfast.
Yes. So the cinnamon rolls, you can freeze the dough. It does, after about a month, they don't rise as well, and it helps if you start with really fresh instant yeast. I have made them and then put them in the oven, turned off the night before, and they rise overnight, and then bake them in the morning. The frosting should be in a little bit smaller packages so that you can defrost it and use it without springing holes in the bag. And I just lightly defrost those. You can go from regular frosting to melted mess in just a matter of seconds in the microwave.
Yeah.
But you can also just bring it to room temperature on the counter if you're an anti-microwaver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could even put it in a bowl of hot water or warm water. I've done before years ago. Cinnamon rolls and cake frosting. This might be a match made in heaven. I have not done that before. That sounds so good.
I have put in just a little bit of cream cheese for the person that wants it tangy. It depends if the one daughter is there or not. If she's not present, we'll
sneak in the cream cheese.
Absolutely.
You're not opposed. Okay, great tip. Do you have a story from all your years of raising children, having people into your home? Is there anything you'd like to share with us that would encourage, inspire, or make us laugh?
Oh, well, we had moved to Indiana, and we were in a small home. We were building our house that was about an hour away in Indiana, and a family came to visit us, and they showed up early. And I'm never early. I'm known as being late, and I've always tried to change, but I seem to be
Perpetually late.
Perpetually late. And somebody came in the house and said, they're here.
Oh.
And I thought they were teasing.
Uh-huh.
But no, I could tell from the eyes they were really here.
They were panicking on your behalf.
Yes.
Did you say how early it was?
I want to say an hour early.
No.
And I can do, by God's grace, I can move heaven and earth in 15 minutes. An hour, wow.
It's really hard. That is some serious crunch time.
Yes. So since then.
Okay, back up though. Did they have the time wrong or were they just showing up an hour early?
I think they were just showing up an hour early. They had to drive from Ohio to Indiana, and that was pre-Google Maps. And so I think you can say
miscalculated or something, or just wanted to make sure they weren't late or whatever. And it was just terrible. That's when they should have looked at the clock in town and just circled, gone to Walmart or Target or somewhere. Go shopping in town.
Well, the kids, I said, just stay outside with Daddy and visit, and I'll see what I can do. They were younger then. Then after that, when we would have company, my husband would sometimes wake me up in the morning and say, they're here.
Oh, no.
And he would say their last names. One time he woke me up with big eyes. He said, the Staffords are here. Well, it's 8 in the morning.
And immediately your heart starts racing and you fly up and you're cold sweat.
Yes. And then one last little thing about people coming. My great uncle came to visit us, and we were still hanging curtain rods in the guest room. This was the house we built in Indiana, and we hadn't used the guest room. So he was prepared for everything, but he arrived early. And so we sent our middle daughter out for her first time to hold conversation. We said, go out and talk to Uncle Dave. And so we had been to the Biltmore to visit in North Carolina. And she sat down and she said to him, I understand you've been to the Biltmore. And they were just
conversation opener.
Off. They were just off talking, and we didn't hear anything beyond that because we were hanging curtain rods. So in the room he was going to stay in.
What a great daughter.
So the last minute prep happens a lot.
Yes. And listeners, I'm sure all of the listeners would agree with this. Don't show up early. It's not helpful. It's not helpful. I heard once of a family that another similar situation where they had company that showed up an hour early. And they said, we're here to help.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It's like, well, but it wasn't. Because, in that last hour, you don't need an entire family to come in and just try to help you. It wasn't a situation where the hostess, needed help. It was more like, now I have to try to finish my last few things, which might include going to take a shower. I mean, you don't know, but the person is, has the last hour is crunch time. So maybe it means going to brush your hair, your teeth, take a shower. Nobody can help with that. Or if you have some food prep, it's kind of locked in your mind. You know what you need to do. Having to stop and try to explain it, direct people, oversee, manage. I don't know. It was a small nightmare. I'm sure whoever handled this did it with grace. I just remember overhearing the story and thinking, yes, don't show up early. 5 minutes, you will be forgiven. Maybe. More than that, no. Be on time.
I call it a ministry to me when people are late. They
give you that extra few minutes of time.
Yeah. But back to the family that came early. I really don't remember anything going wrong other than the shock that, here we had been so busy on-site building our house, and we were back in our own home, and it was a disaster. But I do remember, other than that shock, we had just a lovely day.
Yes.
And we still talk about what fun it was that they came.
Of course. And, guests are often very gracious where they're willing to let you finish your thing. They're sitting in the yard with your husband and kids and playing and talking, and it's usually works out just fine.
Yes. And having come from another state over, we had, you're just so glad to see them.
Cover that with grace. You're happy to see them, and you just Learn it's a growing experience for you too. God is growing your hospitality muscles. Maybe it's patience you need to work on, or self-control with your temper or tongue, or who knows, whatever it is, you are becoming a better person.
You're so right.
Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth, for coming on today. It's been so wonderful to first hear about the civil realm, the forgotten realm, the family realm, and the vegetable realm. It's been so fun.
Thank you so much.
Until next time, bye for now. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow the show and leave a review. It helps new people be able to find the podcast. And if you enjoyed this conversation especially, be sure to share it with a friend. Thank you for your time.